following video is brought to you by BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave a comment, and thank you for enjoying the video.
Welcome to the Kings of Causeway podcast, part of the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Pat Burke, joined as always by my boy, Ryan Coffey. Coffey, how's the week treating you so far, man?
Not too bad. I'm looking forward to baseball kicking off tomorrow. Had a little bit of a fantasy baseball draft last night. So it's good. Baseball is not my top sport, but I think playing fantasy helps me kind of keep up with the sport as always. So I'm excited. Excited for another sport to be in the mix. As you know, we're in a March Madness bracket together, and I decided to pick Auburn with one of them like an idiot.
Idiot.
We're moving on to the playoffs for hockey because I'm excited to watch that in baseball over the next few months.
It's a great time to be a sports fan, particularly in Boston. You know, like you said, March Madness in full flow. Bruins, Celtics, perennial playoff contenders, and the Sox. You know, the great thing about the first day of the season, everybody's got a shot. So, you know, no matter what, hey, this Bruins team has proven that preseason expectations mean absolutely nothing. It's all about what you do with the games that you have to play, you know, and you go out there and you play. So cannot wait to watch the Red Sox. But before we completely turn over into baseball season, we do have hockey season still going. We're about 2 calendar weeks away from the playoffs. It's exciting times to be a hockey fan, to be a Bruins fan in particular, except maybe not so much this week. As always on the pod, we're going to start with the recap of the past week's games. We're going to do our 3 stars, throw some people, concepts, ideas, plays, whatever, into the sin bin. Go on a little free skate. Got some great topics coming up for that. Really looking forward to that. And then we'll preview the upcoming week's games, including tonight as we are live right now. The Bruins are in pre-skate mode, gearing up for the second of the Florida doubleheader, that famous Tampa Bay game. As that game gets underway in about 30 minutes, we'll bring you all sorts of live updates as we're watching it. I think we've both got second screens up there. I think I see you pulling it up there right now, Coffee. So we'll make sure we kind of react to that. And then then we will get out of here for another week. So all right, starting with the recap of the past 7 days. Boy, kind of the mirror opposite of the week before this, huh? You know, week before, dominating in terms of wins and losses, and then we kind of really go on a backslide there, and unable to kind of carry that momentum. You know, in that first game against the Rangers, Bruins looking tough. And then, the perennial Bruins killer, Artemi Panarin, he technically only puts one puck past a Bruins goaltender and still ends up with a hat trick. Ryan, explain to me what the hell happened against the Rangers.
Yeah, I kicked out there for a little bit. Connection just cut off, right? But luckily we do the same thing every week. So I imagine you were kind of kicking off our recap of the week. So I think, yeah, Rangers was a tough one. Seems like they have our number this year. I mean, it's one of those games that just kind of got away from us. After that Brazeau goal, I thought, oh, here it is. This is the real test. Like, let's turn it around. And then obviously didn't pan out that way. I mean, they got talent. I think we mentioned this before. I think they are, in my opinion, that's the team I'm most scared about in the playoffs. I truly think we handle Toronto. Yes, if we see them the second round, could they get hot and streaky? Sure, but I truly think this could be the East matchup. I think the Rangers have a pretty good shot at making it to the finals, so we're going to have to knock them out at some point in time anyway. But yeah, it's funny. They have our number. They're also hot right now. It's unfortunate. I feel like it was a game that we could have taken advantage of, and we just need to hit the gas. And we just, classic us. We didn't really do anything with the goal by Brazeau.
Yeah, honestly, once Panarin's going to get credit and he's going to hang his hat on it because eventually the open net is going to give him a hat trick. But Jake DeBrusk scores on himself or on his own goalie. And I really feel like it was that moment that the team mentality-wise kind of started feeling sorry for themselves and started being like, oh, well, this isn't it. Here's Artemi Panarin all over again, the absolute Bruins killer that he is. Nothing we can do. Look at that. He's even going to get credit when we're the ones that score the goal. So to me, didn't love to see that because it really did seem like that was the watershed moment of that game. And then in the third period, just put up absolutely no fight whatsoever. That was a complete capitulation in the third.
Yeah,
which you don't love to see against, to your point, somebody's going to have to knock him out in the playoffs, and it's probably going to have to be us because I can very easily see that coming down to being the conference final matchup.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right? Like Artemi Panarin's dangerous, so you can't be giving him extra goals, right? The one that goes off the Brusque, I mean, it's a fluke goal, but it also can't be happening. And you see Jakey get off to a hot start to start that game. You're thinking, here we go. Like, anyone needs to score, it's him. Let's get the boys going. And then I think you're right. That was ultimately the turning point there. Is it's just like, oh, Artemi Panarin's now scoring off of DeBrusk's leg. Like, what are we in for the rest of the game? And it's funny. We'll get to the Panthers game that happened last night, but it almost reminds me of what Pastrnak did last night at the very end of the game. Throwing one off of kind of Zaka's skate at the end there. It's like, boy, if Pasta's scoring like that, or at least he got the assist there. But if that's going in the net, like, geez, what's happening? So, we've kind of had Florida's number this year. It's funny. I think it was Billy Jaffe last night made the comparison. It's like we are to the Rangers of what the Panthers are to us this year, and it's that we've had the Panthers number, the Rangers have had ours. So, hey, we're hope Toronto Panthers. However, we're going to need to get streaky to beat this Rangers team because they are good up and down the lineup. It's the first time I'd say they have everything. They've always had a weak spot somewhere. Never really been the offense, but the defense, has kind of been skeptical at times. The goalie's obviously been skeptical over the last few years, but they've really locked that down. Going back to the game, I'd say the difference there is the power play, right? We were 0 for 3 there. They were 0 for 1. If we get 1 or 2 power play goals, that game probably goes different. So against good teams like that, you need to make those count, obviously.
Yeah, special teams right now are not so special. And
they're special in their own way.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. Against a quality opponent like that, when you outnumber them on the man advantage 3-1, you gotta move the needle that somewhat, especially when everything's kind of going against you in the game. Almost like you're fighting back, you're doing a good job fighting back, but let's not kid ourselves, we were never on the front foot really in that game, not truly. And then when you look at the man advantage numbers coming out of that, it's appalling. Unfortunately, that kind of slow end to the game carried right over into Philadelphia, where an abysmally slow start. We just were never really able to overcome it, and then to drop in 3-2 I guess they're a still desperate Philadelphia Flyers team, but come on. Twice in a week they play us tough once we scrape out, but this was bad.
Yeah, I mean, back 10 years ago, there used to be a real rivalry here with the Flyers. It's obviously the Flyers haven't been good in a long time, and so that's somewhat faded. Just going back to the game, I was actually at our good friend Billy Nato's house watching March Madness. Had 3 TVs going, had the Bruins on one. At one point, we even had the Winnipeg Jets up on another screen, and it was absolutely ridiculous to look at. I think at the same time, the Winnipeg Jets were in the second period. They had 4 shots total against the Islanders going into the second period, getting smoked like 5-1. I look up, Bruins and Flyers have like 3 shots each ending the first period. It's like, I'm like, did no one get the memo that hockey starts at 1 o'clock today?
Nobody across the league was ready for the matinees.
It was. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. We were asleep, like both teams, the Flyers and the Bruins.
Yeah. The Flyers didn't come out in barnstorming fashion by any means, but I think some of them were still in their deep REM cycle. Like you could literally have attached a pulse monitor to some of them, and they would have been like, "Well, definitely asleep. He is not active."
And then we kind of get ourselves, everyone wakes up in the third period. We get ourselves the opportunity to maybe steal a point from a game we definitely didn't deserve any from.
Yep.
And sure enough, we just collapse in the last minute, like always.
Again, the last minute of periods and the last minute of the game overall are an absolute boogeyman for this Bruins team. Like, I would love to actively start crowdfunding to replace Ford as that Ford Final Five. I think it's bad luck. I think it's found on the road dead, and that's what they're doing to the Bruins in the last 5 minutes. The team just dies. Maybe we need a new sponsor there. Can we get? I get it. The Ford dealers in New England, y'all have been doing it for a long time. For the sake of my blood pressure, I need y'all to step aside and let somebody else spend the money with Nesson to take over that contract, because it is not happening with Ford.
Or can we, or either that, or let's go with the Ford final 15. At least give us some time to make up for that goal they're going to score at the end. I mean,
Ford final frame. Let's just throw the whole third period in there. It'll be the Ford final frame, and we'll there we go.
Get the goal out of the way in the first minute. But I mean, it is a boogeyman, and it's going to be a problem in the playoffs, because
it really
usually, whether it's in the last minute or other teams down by a goal pulling their goalie in with an extra man, like, you can't be giving up goals like that, because as well as anyone, they flipped the script with a minute left and tie the game. Guess who has momentum in overtime? That's not going to be good for anyone. No. I will say, in the past, I blame the team. This is the first time where I can single-handedly say, maybe not both, but Allmark needs to make a stop on one of those 2 shots. I mean, they're basically from the same spot. One was kind of screened, but it let it get under him. I mean, you need to be down regardless. Like, that's just more of a fundamental kind of lapse there. And then the second one was a snipe. So pick one of the 2, but they weren't close-in shots. Like, he has to have one of the 2 there. So although the team is some to blame, I'd say Allmark's really majority of that. But yeah, not good. Team we should have beat, team we should have stole a point, and we just collapsed.
Yeah, I was kind of in the moment. I was kind of feeling the same way of like, come on, Allmark's got to come up with something there. But I almost feel like we only think that because for the last 2 years, we've seen him make both of those saves, let alone just one of them. And like he's had a little blip, and we're kind of holding it like, oh my God, he's got to be able to save that. How many franchises can honestly be like, we expect our goalie to actually make one, if not both of those saves? I think that number is honestly fairly low. But that's the burden of being a rock star of a goalie. The responsibility and the pressure is on. That's what you get. You expect Cristiano Ronaldo to make 100 out of 100 penalties. When he misses one, Yeah, all right. He's still 99%, but it's like, yeah, but that's the greatest pure scorer in the world that you should not ever miss a spot kick from 12 yards. So, I'm right with you. You got to have that. This team needs the goalies to have those.
Yeah.
We've said all year the goalie tandem has been papering over some of the defensive cracks. That right there is the epitome of the goalie wasn't able to do that this time, and it cost a game. And in a playoff game, it counts for way more than a blown 2 points in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and couple positives to take out of that. I did want to highlight Justin Brazeau again. Seems to be the money man recently, but he had an awesome goal. And I did want to call out again is I'm very excited about Morgan Geekie. I'd say Geekie and Brazeau are probably two of the top three of what get me the most excited. That pass by Morgan Geekie to me was like, that solidifies that not only can he score, which he has been doing, is like he's an intelligent hockey player. He goes in 4-on-1, just protects the puck long enough to look behind his head, does a full 360 on Dan Heinen's tape through 4 people. I mean, that's pure talent right there. Like, you can't teach that sort of stuff. For him to pull off something like that and give us a chance tied 2-2 to even get a point out of that, it's tough to watch because the guys that shouldn't be stepping up are right now. And I'll take it. Like, we are going to need them in the playoffs, but
Yeah.
it's like where is our core? Like, we'll get to it, but I mean, something seems to be definitely wrong with Brad Marchand. But I mean, even outside of that, it just seems like these younger guys are stepping up a little too much recently, and it's like you need both sides to kind of do their part.
Yep.
But yeah,
for sure. And then, I think it could have been really easy to keep going down the coast on this road trip after, an absolutely abysmal game against the Flyers. You show up in Sunrise, Florida, which, as we know, having been there a lot, is a dump of a town. There's nothing around there. There's nothing to do. It's hot no matter what. It's sticky no matter what. Guys are coming off a loss. Nobody in the locker room is feeling good. That is not a private jet or a commercial flight I would have wanted to be a part of, let alone have to get on the ice. They come out with a win. To your point, maybe it is a little bit. We've got Florida's number. I mean, combined against Florida and Toronto, we're 7-0 this year. Those are great numbers. A win's a win. It was an ugly win. It was a gritty, grimy win. Sloppy as all hell. And still thought we were going to blow it at least 4 times in the final 5 minutes. We could not have it easy. Did not make it easy on ourselves. But got the win, got the 2 points once again against a playoff team. We kind of stamp our, hey, we can hang with anybody. We can beat anybody, which I think is what makes it so frustrating when we go in the span of 5 days, have a performance like that against New York, and then a performance like this against Florida.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and at the end of the day, we do have Florida's number, but maybe it's the extra motivation from last year. I don't know, but to your point, it's like how can we be so bipolar opposite on the spectrum from game to game? Even whether it's the Rangers or even Philly, it's like, oh, and now they wake up for Florida. It's like that's what you should be doing every game. I mean, couple things I wanted to call out there.
At this point in the season,
yeah,
they're like, this is no longer the all-star sleepy funk. Like, this is the time you got to be up for every game from now until the end of May, because that's how long you should be wanting to play. You should be wanting to play into June when the ice is wet and gross. But it starts right now. You got to be dialed in. In my opinion, I've always thought the last month was huge for setting an internal tone. I understand balancing the rest and the health and all that. I get it. But a real cup contender needs to kind of, in my opinion, be dialed in for this last month and really be ironing out kinks, not lifting up the tablecloth and realizing that the table is still scratched to fuck.
Yeah, I mean, clearly trends are turning into habits, and there's a lot of negative ones that I don't like. But I mean, what I did like is how defensive we played in that game. Even though it was a 4-3 game, we we blocked 19 shots. We had 51 hits. I mean, to me, it was a good game. The only lack, again, is the power play. We went 1 for 4. Again, you bury 1 or 2 more there, and it's a completely different game. So I'll take the win, especially late. Frederick with a fucking rip from Marchand. That was pretty impressive to put that one in. And then we kind of got lucky at the end with Pasternak going off Zacha. So that's one where they won't ask how, just put the 2 points up there. But, yeah, I mean, a lot to like out of that game, and I'm curious what they do tonight, obviously, in Tampa if it carries over.
Yeah, we'll see. Back-to-back, normally we're kind of on the excuse factory coming into back-to-backs. It's a hard sport to play 2 times in 2 days. I get it. But based on the 2 earlier games this week, I'm calling it a mandatory win. It's a must-win. It's a game that they've got to take both these in Florida and get out of there. We'll see what happens. Puck drops in about 9 minutes, and like I said, we will be bringing you guys live updates as that's going, as we're wrapping up the pod. Speaking of wrapping up the pod, that is going to wrap up the recap. You know what that means. It's time for some stars and for some sinners. 3 stars. You want to go first?
I'm gonna pull a quick audible on you just because we're broadcasting during game time. Because we have
Who do you think
lines.
You are? You're gonna come in and adjust my rundown? Okay, I'll allow it. What you got?
The host is no longer the host because we have a game coming up in exactly 9 minutes. Wanted to drop a quick, fun betting line.
All right, let's get the Vegas Buster in early. Let's go.
I can't get a read on this one. I don't like the puck line wasn't good. The money line was just about even. The over/under was set at 6, which I tend to stay away from. So I'm going with a little interesting one that's been pretty positive. We've called out Brad Marchand for bad play. He's still looking for that 400th goal.
It's becoming a jinx here.
I'm parlaying 3 props. Marchand over 0.5 points, so he can still technically get an assist. Coyle over 0.5 points, and then Zacha over 1.5 shots. That gets you a plus 310 parlay. So for those of you out there trying to get a last-minute bet in, that's what I'm riding with. I don't always recommend riding with me, but if you want to, feel free, and we'll win some money.
All right. Now, are we allowed to move into our stars? All right. First off, go lock in those bets. Let the boys win some money. That's what I was doing right there, making sure I lock those in. Because while you're not always right, when you are right, I hate being told I told you so. When I tell you I didn't pick what you told me to, so I went ahead and did that. Y'all should too. Gamble responsibly. I'm not going to do the thing where we list all of the numbers. We're not getting paid by any of these sports books to, do it yourself. A sports book. You want to get a coffee special? Then we'll read out your little gambling anonymous phone numbers. All right, 3 stars. I'm going first. My number 1 is Justin Brazeau. I'm taking him off the board before you could. Nana Boo Boo. I've been on this kid's back from day one. He is paying it off in spades and in style. This guy has got it. This guy is going to be a game changer for a lot of years, and I love that even when the team's not doing it, he's doing it well. So, JB, number 1 star for me.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that, so luckily you did go first because I totally would have sniped him from you. But I had a tough time with this one, but I'm going with Mr. Pavel Zacha, continuing the absolute fire streak he is on right now, putting in goals, putting in assists. Doesn't matter how you get it. He did his best, Lionel Messi last night, let it go off the boot from Pasta's pass, and that's the game winner. Also had an assist in that game. So Zacha just really for continuing his pace, right? It's, you look at someone like a DeBrus, he's been a little bit hot too, but is that going to cool down in a week? Zacha's proven he's done it over a month stretch now, which you like to see.
Which was something we were questioning whether or not he was going to be able to do that. He listens to the pod. He heard the call. He answered the bell. Pavel's like, you're going to get to go twice in a row because Zacha was my number 2. So go again.
All
Who's
right,
your number 2?
We agree on the number 2. So that makes it a little bit easier for me here. I think I'm going to go with you know what? Yeah, I'm going with Morgan Geekie. Morgan Geekie is he's impressed me. I mean, when he's already over 21 goals. You're looking at let's see, what's DeBrusque at? DeBrusque is at 18. I mean, the kid is, or sorry, I completely messed that up. Geeky has 21 assists, so I don't know how many goals he has, but it seems like he's scoring every frigging game over the last month from my perspective. He's just on fire, and I feel like it's the ways he's doing it. We talked about last week, he just walks down to the top of the circle and rips a clapper by the goalie. This time he eyes in the back of his head, takes the Phillies on 4-on-1 spinorama right to Dan Heinen's tape. It's like this guy could be, doesn't have the talent that we saw to Jake DeBrusque, but this might be one of those guys that turns into one of those elite players that you never saw coming. I really liked Morgan Geeky's play. It was a tough pick this week, so I'm leaning towards him for pick number 2. What do you got?
I mean, his 16 goals and definitely feel like it feels like he's got more because I think they're coming in bunches and they're coming at really important times. So you love to see it. He actually was also mine, but I will pull a fast one, and I was kind of waffling back and forth. I think it's time to give a few flowers to Charlie McAvoy. The defense has been a little suspect. I will grant him that, but he's picking it up on the offensive end just a little bit in a way that I'm hoping gives him some confidence. I think it's important sometimes when these guys, as they're trying to, hockey is so much of hockey is played between the ears. Sometimes I think it's nice to, even though it's not all going as well as it could, when a little good thing happens, when nothing good has been happening, when a little good starts to go well, let's call it out. Let's, hey, he's still got some errors on the back end that he needs to figure out a way to clean up, not helped by, some of the other D-men that are also making mistakes at the worst possible time, but he's stepping it up on the offensive side a little bit recently. So McAvoy is going to get the 3rd star, but it is coming with an asterisk because I honestly had picked Geeky over him, but we're going to throw him in there for the sake of mixing it up a little bit.
That's fair. You just actually reminded me of a pick I wasn't going to make, but now I'm going to make it because of everything you said. And if we're throwing asterisks out there, I'm going to give a little shout out before my 3rd pick to Jeremy Swayman.
Okay.
Pissed on that Trent Fredericks goal last night.
He did on the power play.
And the reason I'm not picking him as my 3rd star is because, to be completely honest, the Rangers game and the Florida game, he didn't make too many saves. His save percentage was not great. So if he had played well in either of those games, he probably would have got the nudge for my 3rd star. So he gets a shout out. My 3rd star is going to Hampus Lindholm. And it's because he has continued his good play. We have called out Matty from the Bruins Benders, and a couple weeks ago called out his ability to kind of stick up for himself, be physical in the playoffs. I mean, the Panthers come. They have Matthew Tkachuk. They're trying to get scrappy. They're obviously trying to ruffle our feathers. I thought everyone across the board, Marchand, Lindholm, everyone stood up for themselves through the end of the game. There was a little bit of physicality after the whistle to that game. Hampus Lindholm with his first ever career fight. I wouldn't say he got the win in that one. It would be a stretch to even call it a tie, but he got beat a little bit, and he stood up there and he threw a couple punches after you thought the fight was over. So love to see it. Didn't show up on the point sheet too much this week, but shout out to him for just kind of sticking up when the team really needs him. He's getting my 3rd star. What do you think, Pat?
Well, that's fascinating because I think we're going to have to do a Twitter poll this week and see who's on the right side of this. Because the hockey gods giveth and the hockey gods taketh away, because Hampus Lindholm was in my sin bin. Costly giveaways in Philly, he had a couple real stinker shifts that really cost the boys, and so for me, I had actually highlighted him as going in the sin bin this week, alongside his captain, who also returns to the sin bin because he clearly did not take our advice, Brad Marchand, last week. He has not sat up there with Patrice and analyzed some things. He's gripping that stick really hard, looking for 400. And so for that reason, Brad Marchand and Hampus Lindholm are both actually in my sin bin, along with the mentality of this team. I don't know
Well,
what is happening.
if
I don't know what is going on.
we're throwing 3 guys in at once, I'm gonna do the same.
Yes, they are all dogpiled in there with the umbrella of the mentality, the weak mentality that I saw in the first 2 games this week of just absolute, just bend over and take it. Cannot happen.
I'm going to reach out to Hampus Lindholm. I have, taking a look back at some of those stats, and actually, you called it out. I am revoking his star. I am throwing him straight into the sin bin with Brad Marchand, who has been an absolute shell of himself. He looks like a JV hockey player. And surprise, surprise, I was going to throw a strategy in there, but my third star is going to be our atrocious power play and the fact that we cannot move the puck. If the only person scoring on the power play is Justin Brazeau, something's very, very wrong with this team. I just don't know if they forgot how to skate, move, pass. I mean, I truly think I could go out there and put on a better power play than the Bruins have in the last month. So a lot of agreement between us, but not good.
That's not a knock against Brazeau whatsoever. It's the fact that in terms of raw talent, he probably has the smallest slice of raw talent on that first power play unit. And to your point, if he's the only one able to score on it, that means the likes of McAvoy and Pasternak, like all these are not scoring. So I love that pick. It's the one shining light on that, or silver lining, if you will. Going into the playoffs in 2011, our power play looked an awful lot like this, to the point where Jack Edwards is live and on the record saying the Bruins, or I take that back, I think it was Brick, said that the Bruins really should have gone to the refs and said, hey, how about the other team just donates $500 to a Bruins local area charity and we keep going 5-on-5, because they were an absolute liability. Couldn't score, were more likely to give up a shorty, or at best give all the momentum in a playoff game to the other team when they're not able to score on a 5-on-3. So we all know what happened that spring. Who knows? Maybe the stars are aligning again, and a dumpster fire of a power play will actually be, maybe we just won't end up, the playoffs, they do tend to call it a little looser in the playoffs. I don't think anybody wants to see a playoff game or a playoff series decided by special teams, and I think the refs are included in that, so that you do tend to let things go a little bit beyond the whistles, a little bit harder, a little bit, all of that tends to happen. So maybe we won't be in an opportunity to be on the power play quite so much. Which honestly, at this point where we stand right now, what are we, like 10 games left? I don't want to be on the power play at all. Like, let's just keep skating 5-on-5, rolling 4 lines. That's when we're at our best right now. And I just don't see that changing as the problem or the worry.
Yeah, I mean, the only maybe thing you can pull out of that is our second unit seems to be good. I'd say they're above average for a second unit. So, I mean, that's always an area you could go to as a coach. Hey, let's just roll right with our second unit, see if they can spark us. But if you're okay with it, I think that tees up a good little free skate segment. So I think we're going to glide into free skate.
I think we're going on the exact same train. Begins and ends with the guy wearing the C. I think we have a little. We got to have a little bit of an in-depth conversation about what the fan in us is seeing out of Brad Marchand. Where the wheels seem to have fallen off. He's on the cusp of this legendary milestone that's going to cement. He's already cemented in Bruins lore. This is just one more thing. But ever since he got one away, something has happened with the captain. What do you got?
Yeah, there's something seriously concerning here, and this is why I've called it out last week. Leadership needs to take a look and, one, figure out if there's an injury going on, because I'd be shocked if he's completely healhy. But two, I mean,
then sit him. Then sit him right now.
Just maybe give him a rest. But he is. It's visibly frustrated. It's not like Oh, he's frustrated. It's like he's visibly frustrated. He's yelling at the refs. He got a penalty for throwing his stick on the ice. Granted, we talked about it. That was the softest penalty call I've ever seen. It shouldn't have been a penalty. But when you're not scoring and you're frustrated, like, you can't be taking those. He then does it again last night in the Florida Panthers game. I feel like he was this close to getting another penalty for screaming at the refs. And it's like, if you're not scoring or performing for us, we can't be taking those. Like, yeah, I love that he stuck up for the team and fought last night as well, but like, we can't. That's not good enough for you. It was maybe 10 years ago, but we need you as, a top 20 player in the NHL, not some fourth liner that's just going to be frustrated, chirping at the refs and fighting. Like, we have not seen a glimpse of the good side of his game in a month, and it's something very concerning.
Yeah, it's one of those, we all, I think, noticed it and all thought he was going to snap out of it almost. Yeah. It was like, there's no way this lasts. And then it's just lasted. And I know his vehement frustration with the no call on the knee to knee, which has been an outright penalty for the last 15 years, if not longer. That has just been a play that they actively tried to get out of the game. They actively got it out of the game for the most part. And then you see it happen there. And that familiar internal debate kind of comes up on, if that was anybody else, do they get the call? Right away, the Chow said, yeah, anybody else gets that call.
Yeah.
And I think Marchand knows anybody else gets that call, which is in particular why he was riled up about not only did he not get even the refs considering a call there, they were actively just like being dismissive of his he didn't even let, the year of like, yeah, you know what? We might have missed one there. Sorry about that, but we can't go back and call it now. Because you got to know, so a ref did see it, and a ref did know that was a penalty. Whether or not they got scared and swallowed their whistle, didn't call it, like, fine, whatever. But you got to own the fact that if you didn't see that as a referee, what the hell are you looking at? If you didn't see that and call it a penalty, Department of Player Safety, like, what are you teaching your refs about fair and legal and illegal hits? So I understand where his frustration was coming from, but when that C is stitched onto your chest, you cannot compound not getting a power play with then getting a penalty. Yeah. Like, you can't. You can't. That you have to. You have to know where to draw the line. That's one of those when somebody else is doing that, the captain comes over and says, "Hey, you go take a seat. I'm going to be a little bit more calm and go to the refs and politely yet firmly tell them to fuck all the way off because they missed it and they know it, and we'll talk about it later." That is what a captain does in that situation. And that's not what happened. And it's one of those, if that happens in the playoffs and that is the result, could completely turn a series, let alone a game.
Yeah, and I mean, we called it out. I think, Patrice Bergeron's filming his Sal's Pizza commercials. He needs to swing by his old buddy Marchand's condo or something because, yeah, I mean, we said it. We felt like Marchand had a different mentality this year where it's like, oh, I'm the captain. Everyone needs to eat now. And we've talked about his, non-shooting mentality.
Yep.
Then you add this, though. It's like the frustration mentality. It's like, that you don't want that carrying over to the rest of the team. Like, everyone else is seeing it now. You can't be having other guys yell at the ref too. The coach kind of had to, Montgomery had to kind of get in there and scream at the refs to kind of stand up for his captain. So it's, just not things you want to be seeing out of a captain. Like, you're held to a different standard.
You
Coming
absolutely
from Charlie
are.
Coyle, fine, you get a pass, but like, you are just held to a different standard. And
or even a Brad Marchand last year, a Patrice Bergeron would have pushed him to the side and addressed the refs.
And
it's unfortunate, but yes, he has the reputation that he has fair or unfair, and I think we all agree that it has been blown out of proportion, making it unfair. Yes, he was a little ball of hate for a long time, a little shit to other players and all that, but he hasn't been that guy in a long time. He's a much better hockey player than just being isolated as the little ball of hate. But that reputation never left. And fair or not, that is what it is. And they say you only have one chance to make a first impression. Unfortunately, it seems on the refs and on the media or the announcers outside of Boston, whatever it might be, he made a bad one. He's not going to get those calls. It sucks. It's not fair. But you've got to recognize that that's the position that you're in. You're not going to get that call if it's right on the line, even if you absolutely should. And to put your team behind the 8 ball because you're upset about that can't happen from the captain.
Yeah, agreed. And to your point, you know, every ref in the league might look at that now, and you don't want it automatic in the playoffs where he starts opening mouth and just starts getting tossed. So I mean, I'll compare it. I'll compare it to sales, right? So when you're a top performer, you can kind of get away with certain things, right? Your manager's not looking at you as close. You can maybe get away with things when you're performing. Well, it's the exact opposite when you're not. And I feel like Marchand, you know, if he was scoring and he was, you know, carrying the team on his back, maybe you gloss over this one. But with all of it together and being the captain, that's where you're held to a different standard and you're going to be scrutinized by people like us. It's not good to see. We've been saying this about a lot of things, but I really hope that one is a blip because we do need him in the playoffs. I don't know. Hopefully leadership is kind of seeing what we're seeing and maybe give him a few days off, but something needs to change quickly.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't really know what the hell they're waiting for. If they're going to give him time off, like it needs to be now because he needs to come back before the end of the season and get some game sharpness back. So I don't really know. It to me that says they're not gonna do that and they're just gonna let him play through it, which I really hope then that this isn't all stemming from a little niggling injury. Because if it is, then here we go again into the playoffs with a star performer having fought through an injury for 2.5 months that we're going to find out required double part surgery the day after the season ends. And it's like if that continues to happen across multiple people, across multiple coaching staffs and all that, like somebody's got to look at the medical staff in Boston and who they're hiring because this is getting ridiculous. Yeah. But hopefully it's not that. Hopefully it is just maybe that pressure of 400 and he's gripping the stick and now he's angsty and nervous. We're all guilty of, you know, maybe biting off somebody's head when we're irritated and they say something just a little bit the wrong way or whatever. We'll take their head off. So maybe it was just one of those. Be interesting to see. It was concerning that it happened then again in Florida. We'll watch tonight whether or not some of those attitude trends continue to happen, but they can't. Like flat out, they can't. Not from him. Not from him because the refs have already proven that they hold him to a different standard in terms of a threshold to get a call, but hold him to a much lower bar of crossing the line. So, you know, we'll see, but that absolutely can't happen going into the playoffs. But all right, enough. Oh, sorry, you got more on the cap. All right, bring it on.
Well, I was going to say, I know we are getting off exactly at 8 for our pesky podcast, so I want to keep this short. But quick news: we signed. You're going to love this. Riley Duran, a right-handed defenseman, 6'2", about 190, Providence College, out of Woburn, Mass. Seems to be a trend recently. Leadership might have finally listened to us, and they keep signing, you know, local natives, New England natives, and not all of them are going to pan out. But if you start to get this core group of 4, 5, 6 local natives that want to really put that B on,
if 2 of them hit,
it could add a whole nother level.
Yeah. Get the guys that give a shit so in the locker rooms.
Yeah,
agreed.
It's not something that will take place right now. Might be in a few years, but I do like that. And then the last thing I want to touch on is quick hot take before we do our preview of the next week. I was just taking a look at like the stat leaders over the course of the season. I'm shocked this Bruins team is where we are at, looking at kind of some of these stats and just
we were talking about this earlier. This is a trend that I didn't know we were that bad. So fill the listener in on what the heck, where we're falling on this, which is bizarre.
It's more of a hot take. Obvious one, David Pastrnak, number 4 in goals, so number 4 in the league. But when you start to look at some of the people in front of him, a Sam Reinhart, a Zach Hyman, you're thinking, yes, Zach Hyman plays with, arguably 2 of the best players in the NHL. But Jesus Christ, 51 goals this year from Zach Hyman. It's like, it makes you think, like, where's Jake DeBrusk? Where's our guy that sits in front of the net and taps home all these goals from the skill guy?
Yeah, because I'm sorry, Zach Hyman has no business being anywhere near the Rocket Richard race. No, are you kidding me? Zach Hyman?
You go from Pastrnak down to 39 at Brad Marchand, and then it's, no one's even on the list, which, highlights something that's a good and a bad. We have depth. We have a lot of those guys that are in that 15 to 23 goal scorers. Pretty much everyone else in the lineup besides Marchand and Pastrnak fit that mold. So that's an interesting one. Next concerning one, going to bring up the assists. David Pastrnak, again, leads that at number 13. He only has 56. Connor McDavid leads the league with 93. Throw that one out, still 82, 60 in that range. We drop all the way down from David Pastrnak, and I could be wrong here, but yes, again, no one in the top 50. We've called it out. Pasternak's passing's gotten better this year. Where's everyone else? We go to the points. Obviously, David Pastrnak, number 5. We are going to drop all the way down. We have no one else. Oh, sorry. Brad Marchand is number 50 on that list. And with the way Brad Marchand is playing this poorly, it makes me wonder. It's like, we clearly do have the best depth in the league, and it's something we've highlighted, but I think this really solidifies that. It calls out some positive and negatives. I think we need someone else to step up. That needs to be Brad Marchand, but it also highlights kind of the depth we have down the lineup, which could be a positive for the playoffs. Last one, and I'll kick it over to the preview. The plus minus. This one was absolutely shocking. Let's see. First one to show up. We don't have anyone in the top 25. David Pastrnak is number 25, and no one else in the top 50. It's on one hand, it's crazy that we've been this good, and on the other hand, it highlights that David Pasternak's doing everything for us. So it's more of a hot take and a statement from my end, but I looked at it and I was definitely shocked a little bit to kind of see some of those stats and where we fall. But we'll get your hot take and then we'll roll right in.
I think it's really interesting that despite the record, which up and going into this week was contending for the best record in the NHL, to not have more than the 2 kind of standard bearers that we all, Pasternak's going to be up there. You kind of assume Marchand's going to be hovering around there. To have nobody else in the top 50 of goals, assists, points, or plus minus is one of those. It highlights that, yes, we're getting a contribution from a lot of people, but not a lot of people are contributing a whole lot. Which, kind of is why I think we're having a lot of these close games. Yes, we're winning a lot of close games, and I'm not going to knock us on that whatsoever, but these games are close. We're not running guys out of the building. For the vast majority of the early part of the season, we weren't letting in a whole heck of a lot of goals. So the plus minus didn't really need to be all that skewed for a lot of players, but to have the record that we have and then not have a stronger representation on those lists is surprising. And only time will tell with the playoffs whether or not that's surprising in a good way or surprising in a predictable bad way. But it's surprising. So I don't really think it's necessarily a hot take, but it is one of those. I would have assumed, if you had asked me before telling me, I would have assumed we had 3 or 4 guys, maybe not the same 3 or 4 guys, but 3 or 4 guys on each of those lists not the same one on all four, and then Brad Marchand sprinkled in on a couple.
Crazy. I mean, we don't have time to go into the other ones, but like we weren't even on like power play leaders or things. Like you'd think like some interesting ones that like maybe Brazo would be, not Brazo because he's only played half the season, but like, you know, maybe you'd find a guy that finds his way into these other lists. We had no representation, and like it's actually shocking that Brad Marchand was even on that list with how poorly.
I agree, because I agree, because I feel like, and maybe it's not true. Maybe, you know, one of these days we'll kind of go into a more week by week, month by month kind of stat look at it. I feel like Marchand's been poor for a lot longer than a month.
Agreed.
But he's at least, you know, on these lists. So, you know, yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll just have to see whether or not, you know, sometimes having all the regular season accolades is a good omen that your team is strong, and sometimes it means you're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs to the 8th seed. So, you know, this league is just about, we've talked about it ad nauseum. It's just about making it to the dance and then staying healthy and getting a hot goalie. The goalie trend is worrying. Some of the other trends that we're seeing are potentially concerning, but it all doesn't matter until mid-April when the puck drops on that first series, which I am looking forward to previewing with you in the weeks to come. But before we preview a playoff series, we have another week, an all road trip week, starting with the Lightning tonight, which I still think we could accurately make a prediction tonight because the score is still 0-0. They are at their first commercial break. So while I watch a commercial for some, I think it's probably kombucha, which gross. Yeah, raw kombucha, gross. While that commercial is going, let's make some predictions, and I have to take a nice large swig because you accurately called a Rangers win last week, and then none of us got anything else right or wrong there. So I will drink.
We real quick? Did I call a Panthers win and you called a loss? Is that a accurate statement?
I drink twice. Yes, I had 3-1 Panthers. You had 4-2 Bruins, so I drink twice. So that puts you up 4.
You're welcome for feeding you all this whiskey and tequila because I am finally, you know, the preseason did not go well for me, but
no, it didn't. I call bullshit. We're gonna have to come up with something in the playoffs for my redemption.
We're gonna have to do a double points playoff.
All right. Well, that puts you up 4 now. I'm gonna start my comeback tonight. I'm going Bruins 4, Lightning 3 in Tampa.
Ooh. I don't, as I'm watching it, I think this is tough.
I'm sticking with the prediction I made before watching the first 9 minutes, where I will not fault you if you think that the ice is very much slanted in one direction, because boy, it looks like it is slanted in one direction.
I'm going Tampa 3-2 win, unfortunately. Yep. Tampa gets a 3-2 win against us here.
Okay.
And I'm hoping it's in overtime. If I had to make a bold prediction, even though it doesn't count for the point game, that's what I'm going with. But 3-2 regardless.
All right. Next one, we are traveling back up the coast to the DC area. It'll be interesting to see how transportation in the DC area all kind of shakes out with the bridge going down in Baltimore. What the fuck? But that's for a different podcast, not one that talks about hockey. So, all right, visiting up in DC in the nation's capital. What's the score you got?
Yeah, I feel like this capital. I don't know if we can see it on the preview. I don't know. I want to know what they are in their last 10 because I feel like they've kind of been decent.
They've kind of stepped it up. They've sprinkled some wins in there.
I can't go back-to-back losses. That's just against my faith in the Bruins. So I'm obviously taking a win here. I think it's going to get dicey. I think we're going to pull out a 4-2 win over in the Capitol.
All right, I've got 2-1. Also a win. Also close. I think that stretch of the road trip, I think the legs start getting heavy. I think things start getting heavy. At the end of the day, I think this is a bad Capitals team. I think we find a way to win, but I don't think we win pretty, and I don't think we win by much. So I've got 2-1. And then we head over to Music City, and then over in Smashville. You know, a team that has been confusing of late. It's hard to peg down what you're going to get from them. I may be shooting myself in the foot here, predicting, you know, that this would be the 4th win in a row. And as we say that, Tampa Bay scores on surprise, a giveaway in the neutral zone
to some person I've never heard of. I don't even know who that is.
And boy, this Bruins team looks tired. I regret my pick, but I wasn't going against it. It's the one that I made. Just
who is
cheap
that?
giveaway.
I pride myself in knowing
he might be offsides. That might be some offsides on the way into the zone. I don't know if he ever got out.
I don't think so.
I would look at a challenge here. Either way, Allmark, come on, man. Come on. No, they're not even going to challenge it. I would love to see that slowed down.
That looked onside to me, but all right.
You thought he got out of the zone? All right. Anyway, Nashville, I've got a 3-1 or 3-2. Sorry, 3-2 Bruins win.
I like that. I was honestly going to pick that score myself, so we're going to have to change it up here. We're just going with the score that's always been working for me. We're going with a 4-1 win in Nashville. Still on my bucket list. It seems like every time I go to Nashville, it's in the summer, but would still love to catch a Bruins-Nashville game down there on Broadway. Pretty cool being in that environment and for a hockey game. Maybe we'll have to do it, Pat. We'll have to get on the docket for one of these years upcoming.
I'd be down. I'm sure we can rope some of our friends that went to school in the area into just turning it into a giant party weekend. We can bring the wives and just let everybody go nuts, and we get to nerd out over a hockey game that nobody else wants to go to. So we'll go to the game and then meet everybody out on Broadway. Not a bad way to spend the evening in my books. But all right, that wraps up the predictions. Before we get out of here, any last thoughts on the week ahead?
No thoughts on the week ahead other than it's test time. We got to prove ourselves. A lot of good teams coming up. This is the time where we prove, you know, what we're going to be going into the playoffs. You know, get Brad Marchand some rest. Yeah, and maybe have him talk with Bergeron a little bit. Other than that, just want to give a shout out. You mentioned bringing the wives to Nashville, to your lovely wife who redid our Bruins logo. And starting to take over kind of some of our socials, so,
she did. We have got a full-time social media manager, Tessa. Love her, love my life. Yeah, she's done the cool new logos. We're gonna have some new swag in the store coming soon. She's also responsible for the updated Instagram page, which is where you're gonna find, you know, some live reactions from us. That's where you're gonna be able to find the Chowd's take. And a whole bunch of other great stuff planned there. Also, you can now find the Kings of Causeway on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You are no longer limited to just watching our pretty faces on YouTube. You can take us mobile in the car. Find us on Spotify. Find us on literally anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find the Kings of Causeway. And you can get all of this fan-first Bruins takes right into your eardrums, wherever in the world you happen to be. All right, that is going to do it. Like I said, follow us. Listen to us on all of the regular podcast places. Follow us at Kings of Causeway on Twitter and Instagram. Follow the network at BSEN_617. Pesky podcast coming up in about 90 seconds. They're going to preview the upcoming Red Sox season. Maybe, who knows, they'll touch on some shenanigans, some wild things going on out west. I guessed on that podcast a couple weeks ago. I would love to be brought back in to talk this little gambling angle that we've got going on in LA. But I will let those boys handle their own business. They're coming up right after this. We are getting out of here. Ryan Coffey, good job by you, buddy.
Good job, Pat. Talk to you next week, buddy.